On Undistracted, it is an absolute pleasure to have Martin Smith joining us. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you so much for having me on the show. This is amazing.
You're an absolute legend in the arena of music, and I think just in life, you're an absolute legend. So I think we're going to get a bit of wisdom from you. And I will say, a little while ago, we had one of your daughters, Ellie, on the podcast, and she was bursting with Bub, who has now been born, of course. How's she going? How are her and Tom and the new baby?
Oh, it's amazing, you know. Like, I'm a granddad, you know. So apparently my name is Pops. So, so we're over the moon, and he's a sweet little boy. His name's Maccabee, and so that was August he was born. So my goodness, like he's almost half a year, isn't he? Like maybe longer. So it's incredible. It's incredible. So our life is changing. We're in a new season, and we're just enjoying all the blessings. It's amazing.
Is this the first time you've become a granddad?
Yeah, first time.
Wow. So you haven't counted any more grey hairs or anything like that?
Oh no, they are. Like if you look closely, if I turn at the right angle and change the lighting, they're all there. I can assure you.
It's pretty special though to think of the sort of multi-generational legacy that you've got within your own family, but that you've also set for so many of us who grew up initially listening to Delirious, who've listened to you in all your different iterations as an artist. What was it that first really hooked you on music and made that the space that you wanted to contribute to?
That's a great question, because, there's no music in my family. Going back, my parents or grandparents, they were all church people, but none of them played any instruments, or there was no kind of music culture in our family. So I think when I started learning the guitar at the age of 12, it was a real surprise. It was like, oh, we've got like a music kid in our family, because we were so sporty, everyone played cricket and football and whatever. But my dad bought me a guitar purely because he ran the youth group and there was no one else to lead the singing. He thought it'd be great for the kids to sing. So he said, oh, you better get a guitar and learn a few songs. And that was it, really. I realized at that point that was the way I connected with life, with, with this thing called the world. Obviously, my faith in God and all of that was all a part of that. And I realized this is how I connected with God as well.
Was it something that you found expression in, would you say, or more of an identity in?
Well, I think both, really. I think initially it's an expression, isn't it? Because you're just a kid. You're just like loving playing the guitar, learning, singing, making music. Oh, this is interesting. If I do this with my voice, that's what happens. Or this makes a squeak, or that makes a good sound, or whatever. So at first it's an expression. You're experimenting. Then as time goes on, you actually get the chance, in my case, to make some music and record it. I was probably 17 when I recorded something for the very first time in a studio. I was like, wow, this is incredible, and then it does become part of your identity, because I went on to release music and be part of things and bands that people wanted to be a part of. And so yes, you can't separate the two in the end.
Are you someone that feels like our identity should be separate from what we do? Like, for instance, you are a musician, or rather your work is a musician, but you are not a musician, if that makes sense. Or do you feel like they kind of are together? Because if in your case, for instance, you're doing something that is a passion that God's given you, it kind of is part of your identity because it relates to who he's made you to be.
Yes, I'm not afraid of all of that, because God has made us who we are. So for me to say, oh yeah, I'm a great human being, I trust in God, my identity is not in what I do at all. It's not in music. It's not. I think that's foolish in some ways, because that is who I am. I wake up with songs in the night. That is who God's made me to be. And So it'd be foolish to sort of try and compartmentalize all the different parts. You know, I love music, I love worship, you know, I love listening to the radio. That's who my Father God has created me to be. So I think, yeah, I'm not into sort of, oh yeah, I can, you know, I'm a completely secure person, and you know, my whole identity's in, you know, and I don't need all these things. You know, I'm married, I'm a parent, you know, all these things come into play as who we are. And so I think we learn to celebrate all these things rather than try and figure it all out.
What label do you think you're most comfortable with out of musician, father, grandfather now, child of God, whatever one you might want to pick? What label do you feel most comfortable with?
Oh, that's I've never been asked that question. I don't know, a good friend maybe.
Yeah. What do you think? What do you think is key to being a good friend?
Whoa, man, you've got to learn to listen, haven't you? Which is not easy for a musician, because you know we like to talk about ourselves all the time. But that's something that I'm trying to do more and learn. In fact, actually, the lockdown helped with that. I think that put a pause on everything I was doing. And spent so much time at home, and I think that really helped me, you know, to sort of de-escalate some of the busyness in my life, and hopefully I've become better at being present and better at listening. Hopefully,
yeah.
You have to ask my kids though.
Yeah, we'll get Ellie back on the show, see what she thinks. But you've been among, I would say, a privileged few who've got to explore the world again a little bit. You've recently been touring some of your new album, Dancing in the Fire, getting to see parts of the world that you haven't seen in a couple of years now. What's your sense of how people are doing when you're there up on stage, when you're seeing people, maybe masks, no masks, who knows, whatever the situation is? What's that sense you're getting of where everybody's at the moment?
Yeah, great question. I was in Colombia last week, and I hadn't been there for 4 years, and I did notice a difference. You know, in all of us, it's not just them; it's in all of us. We're all a bit more cautious. We haven't been used to running around the room, you know, going crazy, holding hands together, jumping, you know, the mosh pit thing. So I think people are a little bit more cautious of that. You know, there's still a virus about, so it's important that we, you know, are courteous and respectful of each other in those spaces. So, you know, some people wear masks, some aren't. Some people are done with the whole thing. You know,
yeah, we're all just over it.
Yeah, some people are like, no, I need to, you know, protect myself and protect other people, and. So I think we're all on a journey at different, you know, different places with that. But I think in general, people are, you know, we're finding our mojo again. And, you know, it won't take long for that to come back.
Do you think the experience of worship and maybe expression, celebration is affected by that inability to maybe raise your hands and dance with others and have those kind of expressions? Or can we truly worship without those things?
Well, I mean, worship is the heart, isn't it? So, you know, the act of, the most powerful act of worship is obviously, you know, turning our eyes, lifting your eyes up and saying, God, you know, you are amazing. You are incredible. You are Alpha. You are Omega. It's not about us. So even the act of turning your heart out and your eyes up, it is powerful. You know, now on top of that, usually an expression of that is that you do want to lift your hands, you do want to smile, you do want to sing, you might want to run around, you might want to jump up and down, you might want to scream a bit, because those things are all great human expressions of when there's joy. You know, when you have a little kid and you say, hey, do you want to go out on your bike? You know, they don't go, oh, yeah, all right then, yeah, all right. It's like suddenly, do you want to go on your bike? Yeah, you know, joy is an upwards movement of energy in the body. When there's joy, always there's an upwards movement. When there's sadness, the shoulders come down. You know, oh, we can't go on your bike anymore. Oh, so you can't. You know, the body always expresses joy and sadness in those ways, and it's the same when we worship. You know, when we're thankful, when we're excited about God, it always leads to celebration.
And the fact that you, even in this conversation, have such a joy about you, and I think one of the things that people who've followed your career for any length of time will say is that joy really is something you bring to any room and to any stage. Is there a discipline that you have to cultivate that joy, or do you think it's just an innate part of who you are?
Wow, I've never been asked this question. This is brilliant. Well, look, I don't know the answer to that necessarily, but all I can say is the opposite of joy is pain, isn't it? You know, the pain and trouble, sin, you know, stuff you shouldn't be doing, shouldn't be watching. They're the things that rob your joy. So I think that, you know, the discipline of keeping joy is staying away from all that junk, isn't it? And I think for all of us, we all know what that might be for us, you know, whether it's, you know, on our phones too much, or watching the wrong stuff, or listening to the wrong stuff, or gossiping, or whatever. All that stuff robs our joy. And so I think that we all have a responsibility to, if you want to say, stay out of trouble, you know, keep our, you know, Psalm 24, he who has clean hands and a pure heart, he will ascend the hill of the Lord. So even scripture maps it out quite clearly that, you know, you just keep it simple, do the things you know you should do. And I think that is the thing that keeps your joy.
Yeah.
And hopefully then we become people that carry joy. And you know, that's an honor, isn't it, to carry joy?
Do you think it robs our joy, those things, because like the sheer act of gossiping, for instance, just doesn't feel nice? Or do you think it's because when we do those things, we maybe feel a little bit guilty? And so it's like the guilt that makes you not feel so pleased with yourself?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. Again, I'm not clever enough to know that. I mean, does guilt come from God or from ourselves or from other people? Whatever the answer to that is we kind of know that talking about people in a bad way is wrong. So wherever it comes from, we know anyway, and we know instinctively it's probably not a great thing to be doing that the whole time. You know, we only do it to make ourselves look bigger and better anyway. And you know, that's not right. So, and we're all guilty of it, aren't we? So and also, you know, I think when we talk badly of someone, you know, they are part of our lives. You know, we're all intrinsically linked, aren't we? And so, you know, we're all the same team in the body, really. So if you're criticizing the arm and you think, oh, I'm only the other arm, you know, we're all interconnected somehow. And so we end up harming ourselves in the long run.
I think it can be really difficult, though, to feel, unless you've got that perspective kind of really deeply in your spirit, that we're all kind of one, we're all unified like that. It can be really difficult to practice that, I think, in day-to-day life, when maybe it's debates you're having face-to-face with people, or arguments that pop up online. You kind of get so involved in the fight that maybe you forget the people involved in it. In those kind of environments, as someone who has been a leader in the church context, especially for quite a while, how do you personally approach, navigate, view these kind of debate spaces where so many big thoughts are being spoken about and people just want some kind of resolution?
Yeah, it's massive now, isn't it? Because whereas 25 years ago, you know, we used to talk and debate in private, wouldn't we? You know, or we'd like have a meal together, and you and I would, you know, hey, let's talk about this issue, you know, let's talk about that issue, but it wouldn't suddenly become public within 10 seconds.
Yeah.
And so conversation around a table is more nuanced, isn't it? You can see my eyes, you can feel my heart more. You can, you know, when something's written down in black and white in text, it can be interpreted 1,000 ways, right? Depends on how you want to interpret it. So that is the danger of Instagram. That is the danger of socials now, is that depending on where you're sitting in that argument, you can interpret what someone says 100 ways. You've already decided how you're going to interpret it, depending on, you know, who it is that's saying it. So even if they're saying something great, you might not agree because, oh, they're from the left or they're from the right, you know. So, or they're from that denomination, or oh, I don't like their theology, or so you completely write everything off, which is wrong, isn't it? Because debate and discussion is more complex than that, and we need to find spaces where we can agree with people and disagree with people and still be friends. Now, what on earth has happened to that? You know, where you can disagree with someone but still remain close to them. I think this generation doesn't have a concept of that. It's like I either agree with everything you're saying and I love you, or nah, you're gone, mate. You're gone. You're cancelled. You said one little thing that I disagree with, and even if the 99% I loved, nah, you're gone. I don't need you in my life. That is very, very dangerous.
Yeah, and I think we're still trying to find answers to how to slow that cultural shift down if it's not already gone too far, and also teach people how to have conversation, healthy conversation. Again, I think it's something that's going to be a conversation for a while. But do you feel as a musician and as a songwriter that your songs experience that same misinterpretation sometimes, or is it easier in music to have people hear the heart of what you're truly trying to say?
Yeah, it depends what you're singing about, doesn't it? But I think it is slightly easier. I mean, if you take the church music, you know, worship music genre, if you're singing songs that are based in Scripture, in the Bible, that are talking about the attributes of God, then not many people can argue with that. You know, they can't sort of say, oh, I don't agree with you for saying that God is Emmanuel. You know, hey man, what are you going on about? Emmanuel, that's you know, you can't really argue about that because it says so clearly in Scripture that he is Emmanuel. God is with us. So you'd have to be pretty crazy to sort of pick a fight over something like that. So I think there's less controversy in that genre. But if I was to pick an issue, you know, and write a song about domestic violence, you know, then suddenly you're in a more controversial space where you're going to suddenly get arguments from the whole world saying, hey, why have you done that? I don't agree. You know, what about this side? What about that side? So the more you pick themes and issues and modern day causes, then of course you're suddenly in the ring of being judged. And the truth is that we need both, don't we? We need songs about both things, and it takes brave people to write songs that are going to be judged. But they're going to be the prophets, aren't they? Bring it on.
Yeah, you got to make that clear choice. What sort of song do you want to write for what sort of moment, about what sort of subject? And it's really clear, obviously, that music and artistry is a passion for you. It's been your career for so many years. On this podcast, we talk about building your life intentionally around calling and purpose and passion, how to get better at doing that. What are some of the things you would say that you want to be intentional about, that you really do feel like you want to build your life around?
I'm intentional about another generation coming through. So not only my own kids, but my kids' friends and my kids' generation. I think it's really important that they find a voice, their own sound, their own gifting, anointing, whatever, if you want to use those words. sense of calling. So I think Anna, my wife, and I, we're really passionate about developing that culture. They need new business structures to help them. You know, some of the old business music structures are archaic and wrong and out of date. And so that all needs changing. The way we deliver music is going to change. And so, you know, we're passionate about that. And also alongside that, you know, there's a whole generation of kids who can't afford to make music, or have not been raised in a family where they're able to have a piano lesson or a guitar lesson or be a part of a music. So I think we're passionate about helping that, and we have something called Common Song, which is where 1% of songwriters royalties are going into this pot, and we're helping people. We're helping resource projects that are helping, especially kids, make music. So if anyone out there writes songs and they want to give 1% of their income to Common Song, we would love to talk to you.
It's a really important thing, because that's going to obviously enable another generation to have a voice. And I think for you and your wife, Anna, it enables you guys to pass on some of the wisdom that you've learned and really embrace this sort of mentorship season that you're in now, that you've been in for so many years as well, I'm sure, for people. I think being a mentor is so important, because we all need people to look up to no matter what age and stage we're in. How do you think you become a good mentor and pass on knowledge well and character well?
Again, a great question. I think good mentors have had good mentors. You know, we only become the people we are by learning from people that have brought us up and influenced us and mentored us themselves. And I would say I've got several of those people, you know, in different walks of life, not only my own parents, but Anna's parents, people at church, people in the music industry that have mentored me over the years. So, you know, you grab all the good bits from people, don't you? And that becomes who you become. We've got friends in Australia that have been mentors, that live in Sydney. That have poured their life into us and taught us about how to do different things and how to be in different situations. So we've been very grateful for that. So and then I guess you then become someone that passes that down, and you try and be that to other people, don't you? So it's so important, and you realize that a lot of issues in modern culture are because a generation hasn't been mentored, or even at a basic level hasn't been parented. You know, everyone needs a mum and a dad, you know, and you know, if you haven't been privileged to have that unit or a version of that unit, you know, you can grow up with pieces of your life missing, perhaps. And so really important that you know, we become parents for people in all walks of life, you know, and you know, we're passionate about that.
Have you ever felt uncomfortable about the transition between the stages of life where you're the person at the beginning learning these lessons, kind of on the sort of early part of the trajectory of your life, transitioning into these phases where you're now mentoring, where you're now shaping others, where you're now kind of passing on knowledge? Have you ever felt uneasy with those changes through life?
Yes, of course I have. Yeah, I mean, change is not always comfortable, is it? You know, when I look back at photographs of me in the band Delirious, you know, in a stadium somewhere, you know, at the age of 28 or whatever, it's like, oh yeah, that's what I used to do, and you know, that's what I used to look like, that's what I used to be. And of course, part of you can mourn that and think, I'd love to go back to doing that and being that age, and you know, being fearless like that. But then you just quickly look around and you think, actually, no, I wouldn't want to, because what is in my life now is so much richer. And, you know, look at all the kids I've got, and look at their lives, and look what they're doing. And so you have to learn somehow to move with the seasons, and accept that you're getting older, accept that the music you're going to make is different, accept that there are things that I can't do now that I could do 20 years ago, but there are things I can do now that I couldn't do then. You know, I have possibly more influence now, more more ability to gather people around an idea. It's like a football player, isn't it? It's like in your 20s, you can zip around the field and you run rings around people. And when you get to 28, you then have to change your game a bit. You lose a yard, and you have to be a bit more intelligent and how you're going to play the game. Or you might drop a little bit back into midfield and not be the one that's always scoring. I think it's the same. I think we've got to learn graciously about the seasons, and also our children teach us about that. And you learn anyway, because you start selling less records.
Yeah.
And you are going to adjust anyway.
But I think you've got the benefit at this point of having proved yourself. You know, I think there's a richness in the sense of longevity, and there's an admiration and an influence, as you mentioned, that really comes from that. But in terms of navigating change, what's your advice to people on how to process, whether it's the changing seasons of life or just change in general? What advice would you give people walking through those seasons?
Well, yeah, you've got to be able to recognize the season you're in. I think that's the biggest thing. You can't sort of change if you're not aware of what you're in. You know, so sometimes when we're not able to always adjudicate that, that's where we need friends, family, loved ones, faith to help us understand. Okay, you're now in this new season, and you have to accept that. Chill out. You know, you can't recreate the past, but look what is in your hands now, and celebrate that. So it's the ability to do that helps us transition and change and grow. And we want to keep growing, don't we? I'm 51 now. I'm making music that I wouldn't have made when I was 21. You know, I'm able to talk about certain things that I can do now from my perspective. And you can't, if a guy at 21 is singing about regrets, you think that's not I'm not quite sure they're old enough to sing about that, but I can sing about that. You know, I've got a life to sing about, the joy and the pain. And so I just think it's fun, and you have to just relax in that, and just accept this is life, and here we go.
Yeah. Look, it's been a real pleasure chatting with you, Martin. And I want to finish up on a question that I ask many of our guests. And that is simply, what does it mean to you to live an undistracted life?
Well, I'm not sure I've discovered that yet, because my brain is always distracted. It's like I can be having a conversation with you, and suddenly an idea for a song comes, and oh wow, so I think the creative mind is in itself always distractible, because things come at you when you least expect them, but obviously you have to learn a discipline in that. Okay, that might have come to me, but I've got to park that for the time being, and come back to that, because what I'm in right now needs my full attention. And I need to discipline myself and learn that discipline, not to just be chaotic. So I think you learn that as you go on, is how to manage that. There are some disciplines. It's always good to say a prayer before you turn your phone on in the morning.
Yeah.
Do I want to hear from my phone, or do I want to hear from God today? You know, what's the first voice I want to hear? Do I want to be spoken through Instagram and told a lot of lies and FOMO, or do I want to read something first that you know, I belong to God, I'm a child of God? Well, that's my whole day, you know.
Yeah.
So that's one discipline for me. And you know, having one meal a day where you're all together with people that you love is a great discipline. And again, you know, to feed off great people and have communion, which is always brilliant. And go cold water swimming.
Yeah. You can do that so much more easily in the UK. It looks beautiful.
I know, it's because it's always cold, isn't it? You know,
yeah,
the whole year round.
100%. And the way you paused there a moment ago, I thought you were going to say just have one meal a day. I thought, whoa, that's a real kind of intermittent fasting that you've got going on.
Yeah, no, I'm not brave enough for one meal a day.
No.
But yeah, no, yeah, I think do something in nature. Every day if you can, which is even if it's that walk, if it's taking 5 minutes to walk around the block, you know, just leave your phone on your desk, go for a quick walk, or whether you can run or cycle or get in the hills or get in the, you know, wherever you are, you can find somewhere to just get outside and look up at the sky and realize that God's bigger than all of us. And I think that connects us a bit.
Getting a good dose of perspective each day. Martin, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us today. I so appreciate it. And of course, I'll mention everyone needs to check out your new album, Dancing in the Fire. It's a good one. That title track especially is really fun to dance to. So thank you for that as well.
Thanks, Laura. Pleasure. See you soon.